At 50 years old, I was delivering pizza in a beat-up Honda Civic when Edward Monroe opened his door and dropped to his knees. The December rain was coming down hard that night, soaking through my Tony's Pizza jacket, and I just wanted to collect my $12 tip and move on to the next delivery. But this old man was staring at my face like he'd seen a ghost, his hands trembling as he reached toward me. "Dear God," he whispered, his voice breaking. "You're Richard Cole's son, aren't you?" I stepped back, confused and a little concerned. "Sir, are you okay? Should I call someone?" "Richard Cole was your father. I know those eyes, that jawline. You look exactly like him when he was young." His eyes filled with tears. "I've been searching for you for 30 years, David." My heart was racing now. Nobody talked about my father. He died when I was 2, and my mother had taken most of his memories to her grave 3 years ago. "Because I was his business partner," Edward said, his voice trembling. "We started a company together in 1982. Your father owned 50%. He struggled to his feet, grabbing my arm with surprising strength for a 78-year-old. "Please, you need to come inside. What I'm about to show you will change everything." I should have left. I had 3 more deliveries getting cold in my car, but something in his voice, the desperation mixed with joy, made me follow him into his house. The living room walls were covered with framed photographs and documents. He pulled one down with shaking hands, showing 2 young men in hard hats standing at a construction site. "That's your father and me," he said softly. "The day we signed the papers for Monroe Coal Developments." My throat went dry. My father looked exactly like me. Same dark hair, same strong jaw, same slight crook in the nose. "He never mentioned any business to my mother," I murmured. "Because we thought we'd failed," Edward said sadly. "The city denied our development permits. Your father died 2 months later thinking he'd lost everything. But 6 months after his death, they reversed the decision. That worthless swampland we bought? It became the Monroe Innovation District." He shuffled to his desk and pulled out a folder thick with documents. "I've been collecting your father's share of the profits for 30 years, searching for you and your mother. She disappeared after his death, and I couldn't find her. But the money kept growing." He opened the folder to a bank statement. The number at the bottom made my vision blur. $823 million. "That's not possible," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "Google built their Midwest hub on Lot 15, Microsoft on Lot 23, 3 major hospitals, 47 office buildings, 2 shopping centers, all paying rent to Monroe Coal Developments. Half of it belongs to you." My legs gave out. I collapsed right there on Edward Monroe's Persian rug, the pizza bag spilling across the floor. 6 months ago, I'd been a successful logistics manager at Harlow Dynamics. I had a house, a career, respect. Then my ex-wife, Melissa, married my billionaire boss, Victor Harlow, and they destroyed my life with false theft accusations. They blacklisted me from the industry, took my home, my savings, everything. "Enjoy being nobody," Melissa had texted me the day I started delivering pizzas. Now I was staring at a piece of paper that said I was worth more than the man who destroyed me. "There's something else," Edward said, helping me to a chair. "Your ex-wife's new husband, Victor Harlow, his corporate headquarters sits on our land, Lot 47. He's been our tenant for 15 years. The room spun. "Victor Harlow rents from us. His entire empire operates from that location," Edward continued, "and there's a clause I insisted on when we wrote the original contracts. Any tenant who violates ethical business practices can have their lease terminated with 30 days' notice." I thought about my daughter Samantha, struggling to finish nursing school because I couldn't help with tuition anymore. About my son Daniel. offering to loan me money he didn't have, about the humiliation of delivering pizzas to my former colleagues, seeing the pity in their eyes. "Mr. Monroe," I said, standing up slowly, "I think it's time Victor Harlow met his new landlord." Edward smiled, and for the first time in 6 months I felt something I'd forgotten existed: hope. Not just for money or revenge, but for justice. 6 months earlier, I had it all figured out. 23 years at Harlow Dynamics had taken me from warehouse coordinator to senior logistics manager, and I was proud of every rung I'd climbed on that ladder. My corner office overlooked the Chicago skyline, and my team of 42 people respected me enough to name me Manager of the Year 3 times running. The divorce from Melissa had been final for 8 years, and honestly, I was doing better without her. My kids had flourished once the constant fighting stopped. Samantha was in her final year at Northwestern University's nursing program, pulling straight A's and volunteering at a children's hospital on weekends. Daniel had just made partner at Baker & Associates, the youngest in the firm's history at 31. We had Sunday dinners together twice a month at my house in Glenbrook. "Dad, you need to start dating again," Samantha would say, passing the mashed potatoes. "You're only 50, that's young these days." "I'm focused on my work, sweetheart. Besides, after your mother, I think I've had enough excitement for one lifetime." Daniel would laugh. Mom was definitely exciting. "Remember when she tried to convince us to invest in that pyramid scheme?" We could joke about it now, about Melissa's constant need for more money, more status, more everything. She'd left me for a real estate developer who went bankrupt within 2 years. Last I'd heard, she was working as a receptionist at a dental office. Then came the company gala in June. Harlow Dynamics always went overboard for their annual celebration, renting out the Four Seasons ballroom, bringing in celebrity chefs, making everyone feel like royalty for one night. I was standing with my team, actually enjoying myself, when Victor Harlow himself approached with a woman on his arm. "David!" Victor boomed in that voice that commanded boardrooms. "I want you to meet my fiancé properly." The woman turned, and my blood turned to ice. Melissa stood there in a designer gown that probably cost more than I made in a month, diamonds dripping from her ears, that familiar predatory smile spreading across her face. "Hello, David," she said sweetly. "It's been too long." "Melissa's been telling me all about your history together," Victor said, his hand possessively on her waist. "Small world, isn't it? Your ex-wife becoming part of the Harlow family." My team stood frozen around me, everybody suddenly very interested in their champagne glasses. I forced a smile. "Congratulations to you both." "We should have dinner sometime," Melissa said. "All of us, like adults. I'd love to hear how the kids are doing." The way she said kids, like she hadn't missed 8 years of birthdays and graduations, made my jaw clench, but I kept my composure. "They're doing great," I said. "Excuse me, I see someone I need to speak with." I walked away, but I could feel her eyes on me the rest of the night. My assistant, Janet, found me on the balcony later. "You okay, boss? That looked rough in there." "It's fine, Janet, ancient history." "If you say so, but be careful. That woman looked at you like a cat who just spotted a mouse." She didn't know how right she was. Over the next few weeks, Melissa started appearing everywhere at work, dropping by to have lunch with Victor, stopping by my department, attending meetings she had no business being in, whispering in his ear while looking straight at me. "Dad, something's wrong," Daniel said during one of our dinners. "You look exhausted." "Just work stuff," I lied. "Dad, you need to document everything," he said in his lawyer voice. "This feels like trouble." My mother, Margaret, would have seen it coming. She'd always been suspicious of people with too much charm and too little conscience. "David, you're too trusting. just like your father was, she used to say. Richard saw the good in everyone, even when there wasn't any good to find. She had raised me alone after my father died in that car accident when I was 2. She worked double shifts at Chicago General for 30 years, putting me through school, never complaining. She died 3 years ago, peacefully in her sleep, leaving me a box of my father's things. And a warning. The world isn't always fair, David, but the truth has a way of finding daylight. Looking back now, I should have listened to Daniel. I should have seen the trap Melissa and Victor were setting. But I believed in the system, in hard work, in the idea that doing your job well was enough protection. I was wrong. The destruction of my life happened in exactly 72 hours. It started with a phone call at 7:30 on a Monday morning. "David, we need you in Human Resources immediately," said Carol Patterson, the HR director. Her tone made my coffee taste like ash. The walk to HR felt like a funeral march. Carol sat behind her desk with 2 security guards flanking the door. A stack of papers lay between us like an accusation. "There's been a serious allegation of theft," she said, sliding the documents toward me. $2 million of inventory is missing from Warehouse 7. The digital access logs show your override codes were used every single time. That's impossible. I haven't been in Warehouse 7 in 3 months. The records say otherwise. Every transaction has your digital signature. 47 separate diversions over the past 90 days. My hands shook as I reviewed the papers. There was my access code, my digital signature, even my supposed login times, all at hours when I was home asleep. "This is fabricated. Check the security cameras. They'll show I wasn't there." "The cameras malfunctioned during all relevant time periods," Carol said coldly. "The backup system also failed. Mr. Harlow wants this handled quietly. Resign now, sign this non-disclosure agreement, and there won't be criminal charges." "Criminal charges for something I didn't do? I want my lawyer." "That's your choice," she said, her tone icy. "But Mr. Harlow was hoping to avoid embarrassing your family. Your son Daniel just made partner, didn't he? Be a shame if Baker and Associates learned their newest partner's father was a thief." The threat was clear. I stood up. "I'm not resigning for something I didn't do. Then you're suspended, effective immediately. Security will escort you out." The walk of shame through the office I'd helped build was the longest of my life. 42 faces, my team, watching as security marched me out like a criminal. Janet was crying at her desk. Dennis from accounting wouldn't meet my eyes. Tuesday brought the police. 6 officers showed up at my door with a warrant, tearing through my house, confiscating my computers, my files, everything. Mrs. Hendricks, my elderly neighbor, watched from her window as they led me out in handcuffs. "Dad, what's happening?" Samantha sobbed over the phone from her dorm. "It's a misunderstanding, sweetheart. Don't worry," I said, trying to sound calm. But by Wednesday, it was clear this was no misunderstanding. Every major logistics company in the Midwest had received an email from Harlow Dynamics about my integrity issues and ongoing investigation for corporate theft. My LinkedIn flooded with people distancing themselves. 23 years of relationships evaporated in 23 hours. The text from Melissa came that evening. "Enjoy being nobody, David. You always were too small for the life I wanted. Victor sends his regards." I called Daniel. "I need a lawyer who isn't afraid of Victor Harlow." "Dad, I'll represent you myself," he said. "No, you just made partner." "I won't let them destroy your career, too." The lawyer I hired cost $500 an hour. By week 3, my savings were hemorrhaging. By month 2, the house went into foreclosure. The legal bills had eaten everything. and we were no closer to proving my innocence. Victor Harlow had an army of attorneys, and they buried us in paperwork. David, my lawyer finally admitted one night, I hate to say this, but they've done this before. Victor Harlow has a pattern. 3 other executives who crossed him ended up with similar accusations. None could prove their innocence. So, I'm just supposed to give up? I asked. I'm saying you're David fighting Goliath, except Goliath owns all the stones. I sold everything, the house, the car, even my father's old watch. Daniel tried to give me money, but I refused. Samantha offered to leave school and work, but I'd rather die than let her sacrifice her future because of Victor's lies. Tony's Pizza was the only place that didn't run a background check. The owner, Tony Morelli, was old school. You show up, you work hard, you get paid, he said. I don't care what the papers say. Delivering pizzas at 50 was a special kind of humiliation. My first delivery was to someone from my old department. The second was to a neighbor. The third was to one of Melissa's friends, who laughed when she saw me and tipped me a condescending 20. One night, Dennis from accounting caught me at a red light, pulling up beside my beat-up Civic with the glowing Tony sign on top. Man, I heard what Harlow did to you, he said. Everyone knows it's bull, but nobody will cross him. He owns half the city. 3 months into this new life, I'd stopped fighting. Pride was a luxury I couldn't afford. I delivered pizzas, lived in a studio apartment that smelled like mildew, and avoided anywhere I might see people from my old life. The man who'd run logistics for a billion-dollar company now worried about gas money. That December night, driving through the rain to Beacon Ridge, I thought I'd accepted my fate. I was nobody, just like Melissa said. I had no idea that in 10 minutes Edward Monroe would change everything. The order was for 1247 Beacon Ridge Drive, a large pepperoni with extra cheese. Total, $23.50 including delivery. The December rain hammered my windshield as I pulled up to the massive colonial house. These Beacon Ridge deliveries usually meant good tips, sometimes enough to cover gas for the entire night. I grabbed the insulated bag and ran through the downpour, my Tony's jacket useless against the cold. When Edward Monroe opened the door and fell to his knees, I thought he was having a heart attack. Then he spoke my father's name, and my world tilted off its axis. "Come in, please," Edward said, pulling me through the doorway with surprising strength. "You need to come inside. I've been searching for you for 30 years, David. 30 years. His living room looked like a museum dedicated to the past. Black and white photographs covered every surface, documents framed on the walls, boxes of papers stacked in corners. The pizza bag dropped from my numb fingers as Edward grabbed a specific photograph from the mantel. "This is your father and me," he said. 1982, the day we incorporated Monroe Coal Developments. The 2 young men in the photo stood in front of a massive tract of swampland, hard hats in hand, grinning like they'd won the lottery. My father looked exactly like me at 25, even down to the faint scar above his left eyebrow. "Richard and I met at a construction site in New Jersey," Edward said, his words spilling out like a floodgate had opened. "We were both foremen, both dreamers. We'd spend our lunch breaks talking about making it big, about building something that mattered. Then the riverside land came up for auction, 60 acres of swamp that nobody wanted." He pulled out a yellow document, the incorporation papers for Monroe Coal Developments. "Your father scraped together $50,000, his entire life savings plus a loan against your parents' house. I matched it. We were equal partners, 50-50. Everyone laughed at us. Who builds on swampland 30 miles from the city? My mother never mentioned any of this," I said quietly. "Because we failed," Edward said softly. "Or thought we did. The city rejected our development permit 6 times. The environmental board said the land was protected wetlands. Your father was devastated. He'd risked everything, mortgaged your family's future on a dream. 2 months later, he died in that car accident on Route 76, thinking he'd ruined your mother's life and yours before you were even born. Edward's eyes filled with tears. I went to the funeral. Your mother was 8 months pregnant, completely broken. When I tried to explain about the company, she screamed at me to get out, said she never wanted to hear about Richard's failed dreams again. She moved away right after you were born. I hired private investigators, but Margaret covered her tracks well. He walked to a filing cabinet and pulled out folder after folder. 6 months after Richard died, everything changed. The state announced a new technology corridor initiative. Suddenly, our worthless swampland was prime real estate. The permits were approved overnight, but I couldn't find you or your mother to tell you. So, you developed it alone? I developed it for both of us, Edward said firmly. Every contract, every lease, every decision, I asked myself what Richard would do. I put his 50% in a trust, collecting rent, accumulating interest, waiting for the day I could find his son. He showed me lease agreements, bank statements, 30 years of meticulous records, Google, Microsoft, 3 major hospitals, 47 office buildings, all paying rent to Monroe Coal Developments. The numbers were staggering. $823 million, Edward said. That's your father's share as of today. But David, there's something more important than the money. He pulled out a specific lease agreement and my blood ran cold. Victor Harlow's signature stared back at me. Harlow Dynamics has been our anchor tenant for 15 years. Lot 47, the crown jewel of the district. His entire operation runs from that building. The lease comes up for renewal next month. You're telling me Victor Harlow rents from us? From you now, Edward said. And there's a morality clause I insisted on in every lease. Any tenant convicted of fraud, theft, or unethical business practices can be evicted with 30 days' notice. Your father wanted honest businesses on our land. I thought about Melissa's text, about being nobody, about Samantha crying on the phone, about Daniel offering money he didn't have, about 3 months of delivering pizzas while Victor Harlow sat in his office, on my father's land, destroying lives for sport. Edward, I said, my voice steady for the first time in months, I need you to introduce me to your lawyers, the best ones you know. Already done, he said, smiling faintly. Patricia Norwood from Norwood, Kane and Associates. She's expecting your call. David, your father would be so proud. You survived what would have broken most men. I haven't survived yet, I said quietly. But Victor Harlow is about to learn what it feels like when the ground shifts beneath your feet. The lawyers confirmed everything within a week. Patricia Norwood's team worked around the clock, verifying documents, establishing my inheritance, and, most importantly, reviewing every single lease agreement under Monroe Coal Developments. The morality clause Edward had insisted on was ironclad, written in language even Victor Harlow's army of attorneys couldn't dispute. Mr. Cole, Patricia said, adjusting her glasses as we sat in her downtown office. You don't just own the land under Harlow Dynamics, you own the leverage to destroy him completely. His entire operation depends on that location. The specialized manufacturing equipment alone would cost $50 million to relocate. How soon can we move? I asked. We already have, she said. I filed the paperwork establishing your ownership and sent formal notice that you'll be personally reviewing all lease renewals. Mr. Harlow's attorneys have been calling non-stop. My phone buzzed. Melissa. I let it ring. The following morning, I sat in my Honda Civic outside Harlow Dynamics, holding the folder that contained Victor's future. The building towered above me. 40 stories of glass and steel built on my father's dream. The security guard who used to wave me through now looked right through me, but that would change in about 30 minutes. My phone rang again. This time, I answered. "David?" Melissa's voice was tight, nervous. "Victor's freaking out about some lease issue. His lawyers are saying something about ownership changes. You wouldn't know anything about this, would you?" "Actually, I would," I said, watching Victor's Bentley pull into his reserved spot. "Tell Victor his new landlord wants to discuss his recent business practices. The meeting's in 20 minutes. What are you talking about? Have you lost your mind?" "Oh, and Melissa," I added. "That boring man you left, he owns the ground your penthouse sits on, the one Victor bought you last month. It's all built on Monroe coal land." The silence was beautiful. Then came the shriek. "That's impossible. You deliver pizzas." "Not anymore," I said. "See you in the conference room." I walked through the lobby in my best suit, the one I'd saved from my old life. The receptionist looked confused until Patricia Norwood's team swept in behind me. 6 lawyers in perfect formation. "We're here for the emergency meeting with Mr. Harlow," Patricia announced. "Conference room A, I believe." The elevator ride to the 40th floor felt like ascending to justice. When we entered the conference room, Victor Harlow was already there with his legal team, 12 lawyers arranged like a defensive wall. Melissa sat beside him, her face pale under the fluorescent lights. "Hello, Victor," I said, taking the seat at the head of the table. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with your landlord." Victor's face went from confusion to fury to terror in 3 seconds flat. "This is some kind of joke." Patricia slid the ownership documents across the table. "No joke, Mr. Harlow. Mr. Cole inherited 50% of Monroe coal developments from his father. As of last week, he's assumed full control of lease negotiations for Lot 47. "You can't do this," Victor barked. "We have a lease that expires in 30 days, I said calmly, "and it contains a comprehensive morality clause. Patricia, would you share what our investigators found?" Patricia opened her laptop. 17 former employees have provided sworn affidavits about false accusations, planted evidence, and targeted harassment, she said evenly. 3 of them were accused of theft using the exact same method used against Mr. Cole: digital signatures, malfunctioning cameras, falsified logs. "You can't prove anything," Victor snapped. "We don't have to," I replied. "The morality clause doesn't require conviction, just credible evidence of unethical business practices." I leaned forward. "But here's my offer, Victor. You have 2 choices." He stiffened. "Option 1, you vacate the premises in 30 days. Move your entire operation elsewhere. Good luck finding 40 floors of specialized space that can handle your infrastructure." His voice cracked. "And option 2? "Option 2, I said, standing slowly. "You publicly clear my name, pay me $30 million in damages, and sign a lease at triple the current rate." His jaw clenched. "You can't." "Oh, and you divorce my ex-wife immediately." Melissa gasped. "You can't force him to divorce me." "No," I said, "but I can make staying married to you very expensive. Every month you remain married, the rent doubles. Month 1, $6 million. Month 2, 12. Month 3, 24. How long before your board decides she's not worth it?" Melissa stood now, her designer heels clicking against the floor as she backed toward the door. "David, baby, we can work this out. I never meant for things to go this far." "Save it," I said without even looking at her. "Victor, you have 24 hours to decide. After that, I start the eviction process and go public with everything." Victor's lead attorney whispered urgently in his ear. The color drained from Victor's face as he realized his empire stood on land I controlled. "This is extortion," he muttered weakly. "No," Patricia corrected. "This is contract law, the same law you use to destroy innocent people. Mr. Cole is being generous. He could evict you today based on what we've documented." I turned to leave, then stopped in the doorway. "By the way, Victor," I said over my shoulder, "that text Melissa sent about me being nobody. Thank her for me. It's been very motivating." Victor chose to fight. He lost spectacularly. Within 48 hours of our meeting, his board of directors called an emergency session. Patricia Norwood had made sure they received copies of every sworn affidavit, every piece of evidence, every documented case of Victor's destruction of innocent employees. The Chicago Tribune got an anonymous tip about the story, and suddenly Victor Harlow wasn't the brilliant CEO anymore. He was the billionaire who destroyed working families for sport. "Mr. Harlow has decided to pursue other opportunities," the corporate statement read, but everyone knew the truth. The board gave him two options: resign quietly or be fired publicly. He chose to slink away with whatever dignity remained. The divorce papers were filed within a week. Turns out, when you marry someone for money, and the money disappears, so does the marriage. Melissa sent dozens of texts, each more desperate than the last. "David, please, I made a mistake. We were married for 20 years. Doesn't that count for something? I'm going to be homeless. Is that what you want? Please answer me. I know you're reading these." She even showed up at Tony's Pizza one night. I still delivered pizzas on Fridays, not because I needed the money, but because Tony had given me dignity when the rest of the world wrote me off. That man deserved my loyalty more than any corporate title ever could. "David," Melissa said, standing in the rain outside the restaurant, looking nothing like the woman who destroyed me 6 months ago. Her mascara streaked down her face. "Please, just 5 minutes." "Your order will be ready in 15 minutes, ma'am," I said, walking past her to my car. "I'm sorry. Is that what you want to hear? I'm sorry for everything." I stopped and turned. "No, Melissa. You're sorry you got caught. You're sorry the money's gone. You're sorry you backed the wrong horse." I paused. "That'll be $23.50 for the pizza." She threw the cash at me and left. It was the last time I ever saw her.